Well, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you're dialing in from. Lovely to have you join us on this week's Kowalah Wednesday webinar. If this is the first Wednesday webinar that you have joined, welcome. We get together every Wednesday, 3 o'clock UK time, 10 o'clock Eastern time, and just get to talk through something that is top of mind in the world of AI, and specifically in the world of business use of AI. It might be things that we're using internally. It might be new product launches. It might be things that we are seeing in our customers. It is such a fast-moving space that we're all in that this gives us a sort of time to think and go through what is happening and how we can apply it into our business. This week, as always, we are going to go through three things. The first is our main topic of the day, and I'm going to introduce you to that in a minute. Then we'll talk about AI in the news. Like I say, there is so much stuff that is being released and launched. It can be hard to keep up. And it's our job to keep up on your behalf. And so we will touch on some of the newest releases from people like Anthropic and OpenAI, so that you can understand how to implement them in your own business and what's important. And then we'll have a time for Q&A. You don't have to ask questions just about what we've covered. It could be about anything, and I will do my utmost to be able to answer live while we're in the call, or alternatively, I'll take a note and I'll make sure that we do come back to you with an answer. But I would say, do not worry about waiting until at the end to ask any questions. If you've got a question or a comment about something that I'm covering, then feel free to ask. We're in a Zoom webinar. So you, depending on what device you're on, maybe it's at the top of your screen or at the bottom, you're going to see that there is a chat panel, and that's where you can chat, and either I can just see that or others on the call can see it. And there's a Q&A panel if you've got a sort of a question that you want to ask. And my human colleague, Caitlin, who's on the call, is going to keep an eye on that. I'm in a lovely little WeWork booth here on one screen. So if I miss your question, Caitlin will keep on top and keep me on track of things. So do ask your questions, and we'll keep it as interactive as we can. So to today's topic, and I'm really excited about this one because it's something that was maybe kind of on the fringes of what I was doing, not a sort of deep experience that I've got around design. It's Claude Design, a new product platform that was launched by Anthropic just a couple of weeks ago. And even in just those few weeks, it has transformed how we're designing and building our platform, and we're using it in so many of our client meetings. If you are not a Claude user, you definitely won't have come across Claude Design. But even we're hearing from a lot of our Claude clients, and they're not familiar with Claude Design, or they're not quite sure how to use it or what to use it for. And so that is what I'm going to walk you through, a little bit of our experience and how things are working. So with that, let me switch out of this slide, and I'm going to show you a few things. So let me go over to Claude Design. So let me see if I can make that a bit bigger. No, that's all right. There we go. That is kind of full screen. So here I am, claude.ai/design. And if I go to my normal Claude, let me just go to Claude new here. You're going to see in the sidebar, you've got design. If you don't see it there, you're going to see there's a customize sidebar in your Claude, and here's where you're choosing things. So maybe Claude Design isn't there and you want to turn on Claude Design. And you're going to click on that, and it's going to take you to this URL, claude.ai/design. Now, what do we mean by design? Well, we can think about prototypes or screens in an application, maybe in a mobile app, maybe a website, the kinds of things that you might have designers today that are working in things like Figma to actually build out mock-ups or high fidelity designs of what a product might look like. It might also be that you are wanting to create some artifacts for an event. Maybe you need some posters, or you need some signs, or you need some handouts that you're going to be using for an event. Maybe you need some very stylistic slides that you're going to be using. So it's anything where you might have either an in-house design team, or you might go externally to an agency to design things. This is what we're talking about. It's design. It's not the actual sort of product engineering and writing of code to build that product. It is the design side of things. Now, there's really two parts to Claude Design. The first is building a design system, and I'm going to introduce you to that in a moment. And then the second bit is using that design system. And let me talk about what a design system is. A design system is a set of components, a set of tokens, a set of colors, of typography, that you might go out to a branding agency and say, can you build our brand guidelines so that when our marketing team are building PowerPoint decks, when our our product team are building the product, they're following this consistent design system. And so it's a very typical thing in a design team to go about building a design system. So how might you go about doing that? Well, I've got Blue Peter, for those of you in the UK. Here's one I made earlier, is the Kowalah design system. So let me show you what the Kowalah design system looks like and how you go about. Let me start a new chat over here. I'm going to show you what the design system looks like in a minute, but I'll explain exactly the process that I went through when I was starting this. Is firstly, to build your design system, you want to have some kind of context. Now, it's likely that you're not starting from scratch. When I was building our design system, we were not starting from scratch. We already had the Kowalah platform. We already had a logo. We already had some colors that we wanted to use. And in fact, one of the best places for finding what those colors and typography and styles look like was in the Kowalah platform itself, where we had code. So what I did was, if I go here, was to configure our GitHub repos. We've got a number of GitHub repositories which contain the Kowalah platform, and we're able to connect Claude Design to that. I don't need to tell Claude Design, what things look like. I don't need to give it screenshots. I can just give it access to the actual code itself. So my first step was literally, hey, Claude Design, I want to start building out a design system for the Kowalah platform. We've already got 2 or 3 repositories that have got varying versions of design. Can you go and look at those and then come back to me to start thinking about how we might build a consistent design system? Now, importantly, some of those repositories were the Kowalah platform, and some of those repositories were the Kowalah website. And so we were able to build one consistent design system off these 2 surfaces. So that's one source, but you might have other sources. So you might have worked with a branding agency, and that branding agency may have given you a style guide. You may have a PowerPoint deck that has got all of your sort of icons and colors and hex codes and everything like that in it. You may have it as a PDF. You may just have the website and you're going to go and point at the website. You may have a code folder if you're not using GitHub. You may have a range of different places where this thing exists. And if you really don't have anything at all, then there are a number of repositories that exist, like this one, styles.refero.design, where you can, to your heart's content, you can go through and look at other businesses where you go, oh, I like that style. I like that style. You might say, I've been using Cursor and I really like their website. And they've codified their style so that you can start to use this as the basis of your own. So don't feel, if you're not a designer, that you're starting from scratch. What I would say, as you're thinking about going, oh, should I borrow this? Should I borrow that? Is that this is not going to do brand agencies and designers out of a job. I really don't think so, because the creativity that a great designer can bring to help you to think about things from a different angle, to think about different industries, different products that they've worked on, will prevent you from coming up with the same style and the same design as every other company. So whilst this is a great tool, I still don't believe that this gets rid of needing the creative exercise of, I don't know, post-it notes and workshops of helping you to think about what your brand stands for. But having done that and fed in everything into Claude, I was then just going through a series of helping, chatting with Claude to build out this design system. And part of that conversation was Claude asking me, are there specific brands or platforms that inspire you? What does Kowalah stand for? What is it that you want your clients to feel when they come to the Kowalah platform and the website? And for me, one of the things was, yes, we're a consulting business. We're providing services, but we also have a platform. We want to be counter-positioned against Accenture, Deloitte, PwC. You'll have been to these websites. They're very, black and dark and formal. They're not very engaging and approachable. And this is one thing that we really wanted through the Kowalah brand. And so this is me having a chat with Claude to help with this. The output of literally, it was a weekend of me chatting with Claude, is this design system. So let me just open it up in a new tab so you can see what the design system looks like. So Claude has built this lovely sort of HTML that I can go through. Here is the architecture. We've got these tokens that I talked about. I'll show you them. These are the base of our system. Then we've got a marketing UI for our website, all of the different icons and things that we'd use in the website. And then we've got the app UI, which is how we use in the application itself. Now, here are some examples of the tokens. All of the colors that we use and the gradients that we use and all of the different styles. Now, you and your organization may have worked with a branding agency and you've probably passed over $10,000 or more to get this kind of work done. Claude did this for me in that weekend. Let me go back to the tokens here. All of the typography that we want over the website and the marketing. And this came from a lot of the conversation that I had with Claude about how we want to be approachable and not just too formal. We've got things like different components. We've got the different brands with the logos and how we use the logo in different parts of the website. This is super helpful. We have got, what else have we got down here? Yeah, a few bits and pieces there. What I'm going to show you now is the UI kits. So specifically, I'm going to show you the application UI kit. So this is for the Kowalah platform and application. So in here, we've got an overview of all of the styles and icons and fonts and the components that we would use in the Kowalah platform. So here is what the dashboard is going to look like. Here is what the Kanban boards are going to look like. And then down here, we've got all of the individual components that we're going to use. So when we use a list view, it is going to look like this. And if I go back here, where we go, application kit. And when we use things like, what's another good one that I like? Like our AI sidebar, how you're going to chat with AI in the Kowalah platform, all of the different ways that we're going to have the fonts and the details and what this looks like. Now, what I found really useful is that in this process, I didn't need to worry about, code or how's this going to work and what's the actual text that we're going to need in here. It's just about like the style and the design and what I think. So if we come back to the design system, So this is this thing, created. And as I'm working with the platform, I can carry on building out the design system. Great. Let me go back to Claude Design. So now I've got this design system. This is useful. Now, how do I use it? Well, up here, we've got a share button. And here I can do a number of things with my design system. I can download it as a zip file, which basically packages up all of these components and tokens and everything. I can export it as a PDF, which I can then go and share, or PowerPoint with my team. If you're using Canva for design and building decks, you can send this as a brand guide straight into your Canva. But what I'm using it for extensively is Handoff to Claude Code. So it provides you with this prompt: fetch this design file, read its README, and implement the relevant aspects of the design. And then here's a link to this design file. I literally copy that, and then I go to my Claude Code where we're building out the Kowalah platform, and I literally copy that in, and Claude runs off, goes and gets this design file, and then rebuilds it all in Claude Code in a directory for the design system. Everything like pixel by pixel with the instructions of how to use this thing. Now what happens is that when I'm in Claude and we're building things out for the Kowalah platform, we can just say, like, using the design system, can you build out this? Using the design system, can you build out that? So if I go to the Kowalah platform right now, then you can see that all of our pages here are now very, very consistent with the design system that we have designed. It means that every page is consistent. It means that I don't have to worry about in either the Kowalah client application or our internal admin applications. They're all following the consistent format of how things need to work. Just this weekend, we were rolling out our new agent in the Kowalah platform. And I didn't need to design this because it was already designed in the design system. We need to focus here on functionality and what the thing needs to do, and we don't need to worry so much about the design. Now, I'm not a designer, and so I will very much imagine that we will bring in professional designers that will make our design system look even better. But it gives me strong hope that we don't need to go out to an external agency to design individual widgets and individual components, because now Claude becomes that design. Let me help you bring this to life a little bit, because I've talked about building the design system, but let's see how that might work. And I want to show you something that we're doing in a lot of client projects at the moment, which is using Claude as part of a workshop to bring something to life in a slide deck. So I'm going to click on slide deck up here, and I'm going to go, Claude Design Wednesday webinar. And you'll see here that we are choosing to use the Kowalah design system. If we had multiple design systems, we could use them, but we're using that design system. And I'm going to say I want to create a deck. Great. Start with context, describe what you want to create, making a deck down the bottom here, and Kowalah design system is what we're using. Now, every week, Caitlin asks me, have you done the deck yet? Have you done the deck yet? And today I was like, no, because I'm going to build the deck while we're in the webinar. How'd you like them apples? So here we are. So I've got a prompt there, which is saying I want to build this webinar deck while we're on the webinar. So all I've done is paste in that prompt, and let's click go. So what the prompt is we're on the Wednesday webinar. We're doing something about Claude Design. Can you go and have a look? Well, it already went to Sanity to pull all the details of what we're going to cover in this webinar. And can you build out these set of slides? Now, bearing in mind, it is using the design system that we have already created. So what I'm expecting to get from this is a nice Kowalah branded deck that is going to walk us through. Don't worry, I'm not going to present it to you because we're already in it. But you'll get to see how these designs are working. Now, we're using this in workshops with clients where we are uncovering use cases, we're mapping and prioritizing use cases, and we are copying those use cases in as the prompt. And then Claude Design is building out the deck interactively for us to work with the client on in the actual session. Now, there is a question of how long this will take. So whilst that is working, I'm going to show you something else just about licenses for this. So your Claude Design uses a different set of license usage from your normal chat. So if I go to my Claude here, you may have not known where to see this, but if you go down to the bottom left of your Claude, you're going to click on settings for yourself, and then you're going to see usage here. And here, this is your normal Claude usage. So you get a 5-hour window, my current session, I'm 16% through, and you get a weekly limit. And so I'm like nearly I'm halfway through that for the week. But then down here, you get another usage limit, which is Claude Design. So just be aware that everything you're doing in Claude Design does not impact and hammer what you're doing in your normal chat, but also it is separate and it runs out a lot quicker. So if you are a full-time designer and you're using this like all the time, then it is going to run out a little bit quicker. But I have good news for you. If I go just to my deck here, maybe because they knew that we were doing this webinar, maybe 2 days ago, they announced that they have just doubled the token limits for Claude Design. So if you were hitting limits, then I'm hoping that you're not going to see that moving forwards. So that's a little bit on the tokens there. Right, that is carrying on writing. I am going to leave that for the moment, rather than us waiting to say, oh, maybe it's writing, maybe it's writing. Let's just give it a minute, seeing if it is going to build this for us. Otherwise, I am going to come back. New AI tools, Anthropic new tool. All right, let's leave that. Maybe it's going to work in a couple of minutes, and then I'll show you what the deck looks like. I can see a question here from Imran. What do you mean about the reference to Sanity? So Sanity is our content management system, the CMS. It's where all of the information for our website, in terms of the webinars that we've got coming up, the people in our team, the blogs that we write are. And we have a connector in Sanity in Claude. So if I go down here, if I actually go here to my customize and I go to my connectors, then you'll see we've got a load of connectors, and Sanity is one of those. And I'm able to get information from Sanity about what webinars we've got coming up and we've done, find all of the information about it. And so these connectors are absolute gold dust. These are Claude's eyes and ears, and it means that I don't need to go into other systems. While I'm here, quick plug, if you're a Kowalah client, there is a Kowalah connector which you can enable, and it means that all of your employees can get help from Kowalah. They can find out what accelerators we've got. They can log requests with us via Claude, and we're getting great feedback from clients on that as well. But yeah, that's what Sanity is, and one of the connectors. Thank you for your question, Imran, because what that has done has allowed Claude to finish building. So let's have a quick look. Let's present in a new tab, just to have a look. Bearing in mind, this is, one shot, and we've not done anything yet. So here is build your first AI-powered Claude design system. We are going to cover new AI tools that launch every week. Most teams hear about them, bookmark them, and never open them. Anthropic's new tool for everyone. This is where you need to go. Claude.ai design lets everyone build. You don't need a designer to have a design system. Excellent. We built our entire design system with it. Patchwork and backlog before Claude Design, after Claude Design, system live. What I love about this is I'm a big believer, as everyone should be, fewer words on slides is the best thing. We don't want lots of bullet points. We want sort of visual items. We want breaking up and changing of the way that things look so that we're not always just looking at bullet points. And I think Claude Design really nails this in giving some different styles for you to have a look through. So there we go. So that's our first takeaway on this, on building that. What I then want to show you, if I come back here, so you might say, right, well, actually, let me go over here. I don't like that, for example. Oh, let me go. Where have I gone? So right, I don't like this one, for example. Actually, I don't want to have a chat with it and get into a long conversation. Now I want to, oh, let me go here. Now I want to edit something specifically. So I can say it lets anyone, even you, with zero design experience, build a professional design system. So you can see here, this isn't just an image that you cannot do anything with. I could say, well, actually, it's not design. They've changed it. It's actually designer. So you can really get into this being quite interactive in terms of the changes that you want. You can come up with little tweaks. I want this to be a little bit more, a little bit this. The best way is just to experiment and start to get a feel for what you might want to do to change this. Huge power for people that are not designers to get a feel for it. Robin asked a good question. I had the same design for a presentation of mine. Maybe this is Claude's only design for all. You are spot on, Robin. And we were having this conversation internally about, right, we've got to be careful here because now everything is going to coalesce around, what Claude's design is. And I think this goes back to my point of human designers, brand agencies still being at the heart of it, at the start of your process. For me, starting with our design system, I didn't really have that other than what was in our platform. And so we really let Claude take the lead because it was very much better than what we had before. But I would love to have then an actual designer either as part of our team or someone externally to then say, right, how do we get a Kowalah voice, a Kowalah vision of what our style is? And that's a little bit where I think some of these other platforms would come in. And maybe what I would do next is take a look at some of these and go, right, how do we incorporate something that's a little bit less Claudy in our look and feel? Cool, great stuff. Keep the questions coming. That is brilliant. Right, next up. So that is Claude Design. Go and have a play with it. Experiment. See what you can come up with. Come up with some different interesting use cases. It is good for actual high fidelity designs, but you can also create like low fidelity wireframes as well if you're mapping out new products and designs and so on. With that, let's move on to AI in the news. And there is a ton to talk about this week. So we already touched on this, AI in the news. A couple of days ago, Claude announced they were doubling the token limits on Claude Design, which is great to see. Now, we didn't talk about this a couple of weeks ago, but why is it that Anthropic is now increasing and literally doubling the capacity and the token limits that they're giving on all of their platforms? And the reason is that they were very, very limited on compute. Dario, the CEO, said a couple of weeks ago that they had predicted over the last 12 months that they would need 10 times more compute than they had in the previous 12 months. And they got it wrong. They got it wrong by a factor of 8. They actually needed 80 times more compute than the previous year because of the amount of demand that they're having as people are just jumping on the Anthropic platform. And so they've limited that usage through things like I showed you there, the 5-hour limit and the weekly limit. And so you'll see this on X or LinkedIn. People say, oh, I can't use Claude because I've hit my limits. Well, Dario did a deal with Elon Musk 2 weeks ago, where Elon has said, you can rent my first Colossus data center. It's called Colossus One. You can rent that data center entirely to get more compute. And so they basically plugged Anthropic straight into that, because SpaceX and Grok, they're now using Colossus 2, and I think there's Colossus 3 that they're using. So it was like, right, we've got this empty data center, well, full of GPUs, but you can use this data center. And so that's meant in the last 2 weeks that Anthropic have been able to double all of their capacity. And so we're definitely feeling the benefit of that on Claude Code and now in Claude Design. Next up in the news is the announcement of the OpenAI deployment company. Now, this comes hot on the feet, hot on the tails, whatever the phrase is, of Anthropic launching their own deployment company. Both of these companies recognize that if they are going to win in the long term, they need to get enterprises, companies, using their platforms, and they need people to help them to figure out how to do that. I think of AI, and by AI I mean, ChatGPT, Anthropic, Gemini, all of these things. It's a ball of clay. The ball of clay itself is absolutely useless. It's only useful when you mold that ball of clay into a jug or a plate or something that you can use and is functional. And so you can go and sell API tokens or AI credits into these companies, but unless someone is there to mold them into a beautiful jug or a bowl that they can use, then they're not going to get the full usage and adoption out of it. And so, I mean, this is the business that Kowalah's in. We absolutely recognize that is the situation, and that's why we're scaling up and investing so much in that as well. But it's interesting to see that Anthropic and OpenAI recognize exactly the same thing, and they are in competition with each other. So the Anthropic joint venture was set up with a number of private equity companies. It was set up with a number of management consulting companies, and was launched with $1.5 billion of investment to get set up around it. The OpenAI one, which was announced just this week, was set up with $4 billion of investment. And again, setting up with a number of investment firms, banks, and private equity and management consulting companies. They've also acquired a Scottish company called Tomorrow with 150 engineers to give them this sort of foundation of what's called a forward deployed engineer, so they can go in and run these projects. I think this is useful. It's useful for us to know this because it validates exactly the market that we're in. But it's also interesting from your perspective as a client of these platforms, that they recognize that if you don't have the people to figure out how to use these tools, then you're not going to get the full value from it. Next up, OpenAI launched a new personal finance integration this week. So this means, specifically in the US, because I believe that's where most of the banks that they're partnered up with are connected, you are able to now plug your OpenAI into your bank and start to get advice and guidance around budgeting, around spending, around investments, around scenario planning and pensions, and so on. And now this builds on OpenAI launching personal health a few months back, where you can plug in your Apple Watch or whatever it might be and start to discuss and connect your medical records from your electronic health records in the US. Now, the reason I put this on, not because it's business related, because this is about personal finance, but this continues to reinforce to me that OpenAI are playing a game against Google and not just Anthropic. They are playing a game to try and win the consumer, the student, the family, the individual, the husband, the wife, as well as trying to win with business. I'm not to say that one is better than the other, but it means that there is a significant number of people at OpenAI, a significant number of investment at OpenAI that is not focused on business use cases. And therefore, if what we're focused on is business use cases, then I think there is a split there. Whereas typically, Anthropic is very much just focused on the business side. Like I say, I'm not to say one is right and one is wrong, but I think it's an interesting that one is focusing on that and the other is not. Let me just have a question here. Another one from Robin. Thank you. So how far do you think we would go in connecting them to your very personal info? I was having a conversation with this about someone with someone at lunch today, thinking more about the business context. We looked at those connectors earlier in Claude. Do you think companies are going to connect up with SharePoint, with Google Drive? Do you think they're going to connect up with NetSuite and their finance systems? Do you think they're going to connect up with CRM and their sales systems? Well, on the business side, people absolutely are, because they recognize that once you connect up Claude or ChatGPT to every other system, then suddenly this becomes the hub and you're able to have some really rich conversations. I myself have got a dashboard where we manage all of our client projects, and it's plugged into Granola for all our call transcriptions, Gmail for all our emails, and Zero for our account system. It's an amazing view onto our business that I'd never have outside. So businesses are doing that, and I think individuals are going to do it as well, because the upside of connecting it is so good. I'm reminded of Google, when Google and Chrome was first sort of coming out, and people going, oh, you need to log in, you need to give it permissions. It's then going to be able to track what you have been looking at. It's then going to put cookies and all of this. And then if you're very keen, you can go through saying, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be incognito. I'm not going to give permission for anything. And after a few days, you're like, well, this is rubbish. It doesn't know anything about me. Like it's giving me the wrong stuff. It's giving me the wrong stuff. And actually, most people are happy to trade a bit of their privacy to have a more personalized and a bespoke experience. And I think we're going to see the same thing with ChatGPT, with Gemini, with Claude, that I'm happy to trade that in order for you to act like a real partner to me, rather than being, someone that has got amnesia and doesn't know anything about me. So back to business. This week, Anthropic launched a new Claude for SMB plugin. And I guess this kind of leans on what I was saying there about them being really focused on business use cases. And the big businesses of tomorrow are the small businesses of today. And helping get those businesses up and running very, very quickly on Claude is going to be super, super helpful. So what is Claude for small business? Let me go over to my Claude here, and let me go over to customize, and let me go over to plugins. So plugins you get in Claude Desktop or Claude Cowork, or it might be called Claude for Windows if you're on a Windows machine. And plugins give you extra superpowers. You can see I've got tons of them that I've created or we've installed. And you go here to personal plugins, browse plugins. And here you're either going to find plugins that your organization has created, or someone friendly like Kowalah has created for your organization. Or you can click on this Anthropic and Partners section. And here you're going to find a load of plugins that are role specific. You might have seen in the news over the past few months, Anthropic launches a new plugin for legal, and instantly companies that are in the legal sector's shares absolutely collapse. Anthropic launches, plugins for data, and suddenly shares in data companies, collapses, because suddenly people are able to get all of this, functionality from within a plugin. So let's scroll down. There's loads in here. Depending on your role and your industry, you're going to find a plugin that's useful to you. But if I go right down to the bottom, you're going to find small business. Well, what is the small business plugin? Well, it's a collection of 31 skills and 12 connectors. And the skills are things that you might expect a small business to want to do. I want to do a cash flow snapshot. I want to prepare for month end. I want to plan payroll. And let me just click on plan payroll. So we go, here we go. Oh, skills. I need to bring that in actually. Let me go small business, and then let me install it. And then I can click manage, and then we can go to the skills. So here are all the skills. Right, month end close, for example, closes the month, reconciles against this, blah, blah, blah. And then here is the skill and how it's going to work. Now, if you're a small business, an accountancy firm, manufacturer, a small retailer, you are never going to create all of these yourself. You don't have the expertise or the time to be able to do that. And in one click, just where I installed that small business, I now have all of these pre-built skills to help me to run my business. Just unbelievable. Now, the guideline is that you should think of these as like 60%. 60% you, because your business is slightly different, because you might not be using QuickBooks, you might be using Xero or something else. You might not be working on a monthly process, you might be working on a quarterly process, but you have got the ability to edit this thing directly by having a chat with Claude and then make it your own. What this does is inspire you with what's possible and then have a chat with Claude to make it your own. What this also comes with is a number of pre-built connectors that you can plug in. We use Xero, but you might be using QuickBooks, and so you could plug that in. We already have HubSpot, Canva, DocuSign, and Slack connected, and we've already got all these connected. But you can see how, as a business owner that doesn't know too much about Claude or tech, add. And suddenly Claude is able to help you with all of these skills because it's got the eyes and ears to be able to go and do this work. So that is Claude for small business. And that is the end of this week's AI in the news. Lots of stuff that is going on there. And so that brings us to the end of today's Wednesday webinar. If you've got any other questions, then do feel free to ask me a question. What I would encourage you to do after today is get into Claude Design. Have a think first about what are the sources that you would use. Is there an existing brand guideline? Is there an existing deck? Is there an existing application or bit of code that would start you on that right direction? Build out your design system and then start having a play. If you get stuck, we'll give you the link to this in the follow-up email. But Claude provides a lovely set up your design system in Claude, and that explains how to do that. And then it goes on to, maybe I have to go back here, how to use Claude Design to actually bring that to life. But honestly, you're not going to learn anything in here much more than what we've covered, apart from the fact it's sort of written down. The best way to learn Claude Design is to use Claude Design and see what works. So with that, thank you very much for joining live. If you're watching on YouTube, then hello as well. You should have joined live. It was great. And we will see you next week, this time, 3 p.m., where we will cover another sort of hot topic. And we will likely be talking about managed agents, which is another Claude feature that has had a big upgrade this week. And so we're going to be promoting that so that you can register for that this time next week. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.